The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Welcome to Planting Seeds, Philanthropy in Saskatchewan, a show where we aim to connect you to the community impact being powered by donors and charities across the prairies. I'm your host, Victor, with the South Sask Community Foundation, and I hope you enjoy the show. I'm happy to welcome Colleen Strauch today. Colleen is the director of the Nonprofit and Voluntary Sector Studies Network, which is a handful, at the Luther College. And just for reference, we'll refer to that name as the NVSSN kind of going forward to simplify it. And really, why I asked Colleen to come here today, we're quite familiar with each other. We do some collaborative work between the NVSSN and our foundation. And I just thought this would be a great opportunity for Colleen to be able to explain a bit about how people can kind of power the nonprofit and volunteer sector through Luther College. So welcome, Colleen.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Is there anything that you'd like to let people know, like a bit about your background, perhaps?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been at Luther College now for 5 years and in the role as the director of the NVSSN since 2021. And I will just say that Luther College, I think most people in our community, if you're living in Regina, are familiar with it. We do have a high school campus as well as a university campus. And I'm located at Luther College at the University of Regina. And the NVSSN is really an opportunity for that extension of the university into the community. We have the official certificate program as well as the broader NVSSN network that's designed to help support networking opportunities and learning for the nonprofit sector.
Perfect. Maybe let's start. My main question, as soon as you said that, is can you tell us more about the certificate program that exists there and maybe what it is, how people can get involved with it?
Yeah, so the certificate is called the NSLI certificate, which is short, another big long name, but it's the Nonprofit Sector Leadership and Innovation. So it is an undergraduate certificate. It's a credit certificate. It can be taken through the Center for Continuing Education or as a traditional undergraduate degree seeking student, it can be taken concurrently with any degree program. So it can be taken as a standalone certificate or concurrently with a degree program. That's great. So it's really widely open to. It is. So if you are, working in the sector or interested in pursuing or learning more about, nonprofit sector governance and leadership, you can take the certificate through Center for Continuing Education, or you can take it again as a degree student. And there are 5 courses that you need to take from a suite of 9. So we have a total of 9 courses, but 5 courses are required to complete the certificate program. If you have previous experience working in the nonprofit sector, we do have prior learning recognition. So there's opportunities to explore what we call PLAR, or that prior learning recognition, through CCE, the Center for Continuing Education. And there are elective courses as well. So for those traditional undergraduate degree seeking students, I think a lot of them are surprised that they can quite easily complete the certificate, embedding it into the electives that they have available in their degree programs. That's great. So for people that are taking this certificate, kind of like what's your hope, or what's the organization's hope for what they get out of it, or what the next step is after the certificate? Absolutely. So the certificate was created originally in 2015, 2016, and there was a lot of community consultation and just recognition for the training needs of the nonprofit sector. So helping create leaders who might have careers in the nonprofit sector, but not just careers in the sector, also creating engaged citizens and people that understand the importance of volunteerism and taking part as a volunteer in your community. So in order to do that, you have to have an understanding of how do boards work, nonprofit boards, how does, community advocacy, what's my role as a citizen, how can I get involved, understanding the mechanisms for impacting social change through the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
Again, both it could be as a paid employee in the nonprofit sector or as a volunteer.
Yeah.
So the goal is really to help people understand governance, fund development, and the unique challenges and structures that exist in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, I'm laughing
Yes.
because yes, the unique structures of the nonprofit sector is very true.
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing that I think we see a lot with the organizations we work with, and I can speak to personally before I was at the foundation with the nonprofit I worked for, is that, you know, and I had served on board of directors before, but I feel like it wasn't until almost like the third board as someone for me that was just kind of a roaming board member, until I felt like I was starting to really get a grasp on how everything worked. And as you mentioned, like the simple understanding and kind of getting rid of the intimidation of, you know, what is a board, how does it operate, what does governance mean, and how does a governance board work versus an operations board? Like questions like that, oftentimes, especially at smaller organizations, when you might have people, I guess a mix of people of different amounts of experience on boards, that it can become really muddy sometimes for people to understand, you know, what is operations, what is governance, what is my role on this board, or from the organization standpoint too, as the CEO or executive director, to know like what's my role to engage with this board as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really similar experience for so many, and organizations are struggling to find and recruit board members, is what we're hearing from our community partners. So it is really important for people to kind of have that foundational understanding going into work or volunteerism in the sector, because the more we can remove those barriers to understanding, you know, because like you said, someone might not really think about volunteering as a board member because they're like, well, I have no idea what that means, or what my responsibilities will be. And so trying to make sure that we create as much opportunity for learning and knowledge around that to increase volunteerism and really support that is a big part of the certificate program for sure.
I appreciate that part a lot. As you mentioned, and I think we've said it on almost every episode of this show, but at some point it comes up, just the fact that, you know, volunteerism is down and people need more volunteers, and board members is a big part where people need those people to really just oversee and help lead and help guide organizations. And there's so many different charity and nonprofit organizations that need board members, and they need skilled board members. And as you mentioned, just understanding how a board works is really important. But another aspect for me, and I think that we see widely, is, you know, people that are board members and understand how that works, it's because they've been in it for a long time, or if you had a family member who's a board member, like there's a web there. It's like the family member, the friend who recruited you. So to really try to break out of these webs that may exist and welcome in new people and be more equitable, it's really important to have programs like this in order to get, because there's so much knowledge from people of different communities that might not normally be on board.
Yeah, I agree. And having like the undergraduate degree students who are typically in the 18 to 24 age range, I think as we see, you know, people who in retirement who are maybe wanting to move on or have done this, like you said, for a really long time, or, you know, maybe, you know, just transitioning to different times in their life to generate and create the new leaders that will help carry that on, and having the multi-generation kind of mentorship time while we still have it, right? People who have, like we said, served for a long time, giving them the opportunity to train and mentor those new people who might have that foundational understanding. But yeah, I think that I hear a lot about the need for recruiting young people and young volunteers, and then just creating that spirit of volunteerism, understanding how much you can influence change through working on a board and getting involved in community. And it also has a direct impact on well-being, right? So when we talk about mental health challenges and we talk about, you know, the need for connection, I think this is a way that I see the certificate really helps young people connect to their communities. And I think that in turn has a huge impact on well-being. So I obviously really believe in the importance of it, like you said, and identify that there is a huge need for that. So
I feel like right now, just based on everything you're saying and the well-being piece, I feel like this is a good opportunity just to really champion the idea of like the power of volunteerism to people. Like I've been a volunteer for many years, and it's the same thing I was talking about when I first became a mentor to a kid, and the first time I was going to really do this volunteer work, I was intimidated at the idea that like I needed to like inspire or be like exceptional for this kid. And then the reality is like you're just making a friendship and you're doing things that are enjoyable and you're feeling really good when you're making a difference.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like feeling connected to your community, a big thing we talk about at community foundations is the word belonging.
Yeah.
And how important belonging in your community is. And when you start to give back to your community automatically gives back to you, whether you're asking for it or not. There's like an emotional sense of giving back that's going to happen regardless, as well as in other ways. But
no, I couldn't agree more. And I think this might be a nice actually transition into kind of the broader NVSSN network, because the NSLI certificate program is one piece of it, but the other is that like broader network. And the network is designed to help people stay connected and understand, you know, what's happening in the sector in terms of, you know, just challenges that people are facing, because those things will also help inform our academic programming. And then we do try to have professional development events that can kind of come as well to help meet the needs of the sector in that way. And then just again, the greater kind of like community needs and service and understanding, and then partnering with other organizations like South Sask Community Foundation and others to kind of, you know, make sure that we're meeting the needs and supporting community however we can, really.
So how do you go, we will probably naturally talk a bit about our partnership, but before we like talk specifically about some of that, how do you go about forming those partnerships within the community and involving the organization in that collaborative way?
So when I started this position, there was kind of an existing network, but for me, it's just all about that relationship piece, right? So I've tried to dedicate a lot of time just meeting with people, executive directors, volunteers, people who are connected in some way to the nonprofit sector, and just understanding what those day-to-day realities are, and building relationships really with people so that we can serve those needs again through our certificate program, but also through that kind of broader network. So I would say it's just been for me about connecting and meeting people and just kind of identifying the different things that are going on and how we could collaborate with those things, because we don't intend by any means to take away from the amazing things that are happening, but really just like, you know, what's kind of our niche, and it's understanding how we can work collectively to meet those needs.
Absolutely. On the topic of connecting, just a kind of an interesting note that I've really noticed this year specifically, like I feel like, you know, in 2020, all connection became virtual, and there was actually some amazing points to that, like the broader regional reach, for example, and the ability to meet with people on a whim is really valuable, and something I think we're still taking advantage of today, realizing that not every meeting needs to be in person. But I just wanted to say like a little story. When I started with the foundation in 2020, and the first Community Foundations of Canada conference I attended was a virtual one in 2021. And while I got a ton of good information from that, I didn't connect with people. And what I realized this year in 2023, we went to the first one in person since I've started. And I got so much information, but a huge part of it was just those conversations with people, the relationships I've built, not only the information that we shared naturally in a room of, you know, 30 people all talking about one topic and you're just frantically writing notes, but then also those emails that I took away and those people that I'm now calling and partnerships that are potentially starting that would have never started without that in-person connection. So it's nice to see that the world's kind of at a point where we can start doing that in-person connection again.
I totally agree. It just has a different effect. Like you said, there are some advantages for having like adjusted so swiftly to fully online interactions and engagements, because you can again connect with people in Montreal or Vancouver, Toronto in like, so easily. And so, but I think especially when you're working on things like supporting the nonprofit sector through learning, it really helps for us to be able to gather together in the same room and just have that ideas generation and those conversations, because there's so much that can come from, like you said, that collaboration and the partnerships that are formed in those relationships. Really, I think those are the most exciting times, because there's lots of things and synergies that can come out of that conversation. So
I think this is a good time. Let's chat a little bit about our partnership. And our partnership really goes beyond one project. It very quickly. I feel like we're involved, our organizations, with each other quite a bit now. But this is actually a question that I have, because I just realized right now I don't totally know. But how did you get involved with South Sask Community Foundation? Because I know initially it wasn't through me. I kind of got an email to meet with you. And then that's where it kicked off for me.
Well, so at Luther College, we actually got a new president in 2020 as well. So Dr. Mark Jerry is the president of Luther College at both the high school and university campus. And of course, 2020, he kind of started with the managing both a high school and a university campus in the middle of a pandemic. So it was in 2021, I think, that he reached out to meet with Donna Ziegler, your executive director, with our director of development from Luther College, and they invited me to join in the meeting, just because there were lots of natural, again, connections there. So I was able to meet with Mark and Donna and Maureen, our director of development. And then that's, I think, how you and I got connected. So thanks to Mark and Maureen for inviting me to that meeting.
And I guess my side of the story really is, and there's a little bit of explaining, but there's a project that we're working on together quite a bit. And you've been a huge connector for the foundation, which I'm endlessly thankful for. But it's called Vital Signs Research. And for the audience who probably might not be as familiar with this, is that Community Foundations of Canada champion something called Vital Signs Research, and different community foundations across the country will locally participate in this. So South Sask Community Foundation historically has done it. We haven't had a report since 2019, I believe. It was before my time, so 2018 or 2019. And this is the first year that we're publishing a report. So it was when we started to do the planning for that report, I kind of got the nudge from our executive director, Donna, to say, like, hey, you should reach out to Colleen and set up a meeting. And to be honest, when I was meeting with you, like, I wasn't really sure where things were going to go, but I just thought, okay, like, let's talk about what we've got on the go and see if there's some synergies. And very quickly, to do this research project this year, the NVSSN jumped on board right away and has been a huge connector. You connected us to the University of Regina, a software engineering class where they actually developed a whole kind of people-centered design website framework that can bring the report to life in a way that it can reach more people. SSCF, as a result, hired somebody from that class who's currently working with us over the summer to actually develop that now into a real piece. There's been other connections for sure around, there's the SDG, or the Sustainable Development Goals Summit that just happened. And just a lot of really good opportunities. And what I have found is a lot of efficiencies that I don't think if you and I were working together and creating those partnerships of working with others, that we would not have the capacity to probably make this report as strong as it's going to be. And just for a little bit of insight too on the report, because like, what is the point of it? The point of it really is to take the pulse of community and understand communities' really most pressing needs at the time. A little bit of a sneak peek to what will be released before the end of 2023, but like some of the pressing needs we're looking at is, food insecurity. So how can we feed the hungry? How can we support safe and affordable housing, knowing that that's becoming something like homelessness and just access to housing is becoming more and more of an issue. Mental health and well-being, specifically as it relates to things like trauma and grief and substance abuse, have been on the rise for years. And we've seen that especially since 2020. That's just a little snippet of some of the things we're looking into. And luckily, through partnerships like yours, we're finding kind of innovative ways to present that information.
Yeah, no, I echo the appreciation for the partnership, because this is exactly why I think the MVSSN is so important. And yeah, just to help kind of make a bridge. And like you said, it increases capacity when we can partner and do things together, then we can just do so much more. So it's awesome. And I'm so glad that we have connected. And I think that it's really exciting to see the vital signs report coming together. And, you know, I really commend the community foundations, I guess, putting the level of importance that it does also on partnerships, right? And it just, I think you all really embody the spirit of collaboration, and that just helps you really live out kind of what your values are as a foundation. And it truly, I think, makes you leaders in the community. So I think that's really awesome, exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the report and having it all come together. It's going to be really great, and I know it'll help inform a lot of community-based organizations and community research and information too. So
as we're putting it together, like one of the key themes that really keeps coming up, and it comes up in some of the research as well, but is that importance of collaboration and efficiency and doing as much as we can with little. Anybody that's ever worked in the charitable sector knows that it's all about working with doing as much as you can with as little as you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's always kind of that puzzle piece of figuring out how much we can really do with limited resources. I really think it's important too as we're talking about this, is just to find more and more ways that not just organizations like ours that work with charities, but also charities themselves find ways to collaborate. Like one of the things that I witnessed on the charity side, and it's still true on our side, which the foundation would be more of like a funder, is that when people are applying for funding, we're always looking for like partnerships. Yeah, who are you partnering with? Are you partnering with someone? Yeah. And the reality is like, that's not going to make or break necessarily whether you get a grant, but if we can see that two organizations are working really strong, and they're taking all their resources and doing as much as they can with them, it is a stronger case for people that are looking at assessing applications like that. And to be honest, just from what I've witnessed, it's a stronger case for how much can be done with the funding that organizations are getting.
No, exactly. And I think it totally makes sense that they have a stronger case when they're applying, because it shows that they kind of, understand the value of collaboration and partnership for addressing these community challenges, right? Because something that we talked a lot about at our SDGs event was that, the big challenges of our community, we have to face them collectively. And I think that's really the spirit and the value of both the NVSSN and the Community Foundation is creating a space for that collaboration and partnership and learning, because we know that some of these big challenges like poverty, isolation, mental health, food security, all of those things are challenges that we need to address collectively, and we need lots of different voices and ideas at the table, because they can't be solved by one group alone, right? So.
Well, and they're so interconnected too it's, if you're addressing one, you kind of are addressing the other to an extent. So it'd be really good to figure out, who's doing what, and whose strengths lie where, and how can we all work together to work. And it's not to say that the charitable sector already doesn't do that. There are organizations that are working together, but there's definitely a lot more potential for that to be done across the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Really. And I think that is kind of tying back to the beginning, like a big goal of the network is to create a space for some of those things to happen, right? Because I think there's a lot to be said for just creating the space for people to come together and have those conversations, because it helps break down the silos and understand what everybody's doing and identify the challenges, but also solutions and opportunities, right? Like you say, knowing what our gifts are and what our strengths are. And if you create the space for those conversations to happen, then ideally it can build momentum. So.
If there was kind of a call to action to come out of all of this, I guess two things really ring true to me is, and this is one that we kind of shout from the roof as much as we can, which is, if you're willing, if you're in a position where you can volunteer, get involved. It's time to get involved. It's not just that it's a time commitment that's going to take up your own time, is that it's something that is going to really fulfill your life. Is really what it comes down to. Is like, if someone can find, whether it's a board or an organization that they're passionate with, is that the more time you can spend helping people, you're also going to end up helping yourself, which is just an amazing thing that just happens.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And the other aspect really is, just from the charitable sector. If you're a nonprofit organization or a charity of any kind, it's like, find ways to partner, find ways to work together. We know that you're strapped for resources. We know that others are, and we know that there's stronger ways that people can work together. And hopefully organizations like ours can also help, as you mentioned, create those spaces for people to come together and find ways to kind of get the starting points to creating those meaningful partnerships and relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would echo your call to action. And then I would also just say, like, if, if you're in the nonprofit sector, by all means, reach out to me, or if you're a volunteer and you identify like a training need, then we could absolutely chat more about what that could look like. And then the other piece would be, if you're a parent or a student or just somebody who's in a career transition and interested in maybe considering the nonprofit sector as a career option, then to check out our certificate program and check out, it's on our Luther College website or on the University of Regina website, but I would just open anybody up to reaching out to me, both for kind of that formal training, but also the informal training, just ideas that we could create to help support community and or partnerships, right? Again, we love partnering with people and creating more capacity and advancing the work collectively. So that would be just an invitation, I guess.
Awesome. So I guess you heard it. Reach out to Colleen, either via Luther College's website is the right place to look. Just on there, just search the nonprofit volunteer.
Yeah, Luther College at the University of Regina, and there's a communities tab, and that has the NBSSN information there.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. It was great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I look forward to doing more work together. Hopefully the community can see all the great partnerships that we're starting.
Absolutely, I agree. Thanks, Victor.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn how you can make an impact in your own community, visit the South Sask Community Foundation online at sscf.ca or find us on social media on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Spotify. Thank you.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today